Chris with Lockjaw Manufacturing. I'm joined by two very special people here. We are here to discuss a very, very, very hot topic right now, and that is locksmith licensing. I want to introduce to my left, I have Mr. Tyler Thomas. You want to say hi to everyone there, Tyler? And
Hello.
then underneath me there, we got Mr. Tommy Hoffman. How you doing, Tommy?
Hi, guys.
Do you prefer Tommy or Tom?
Tom's good for this.
Tom, wonderful. Thanks for joining us today. Um, we have a lot of questions to go over. Tyler's going to be moderating this discussion. I have some stances. Mr. Hoffman has some stances as well too about licensing. I think this is going to be a very interesting discussion. That being said, Tyler, take it away.
Very well. As some of you may or may not know, Locksmith Ledger posted an article on their website on Wednesday of this week entitled, quote, Keys Inc. proposed national locksmith licensing, end quote. The article, which we will discuss point by point and paragraph by paragraph, is a prelude to one company's effort to enact licensing at a federal level for the locksmith trade. As Mr. Huffstetler said, joining us today, himself and Mr. Hoffman. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
Before we get started, I'll give you an opportunity, just like if you were at any trade show, a class, association class, and a chance to introduce yourself, where you are, what you do. I'll give you both the opportunity to do that, starting with Mr. Huffstetler.
Most of you know me, Chris Huffstetler. I own River City Locksmith up here in Spokane, Washington. On top of that, I also run the phenomenal Lockjaw Manufacturing. Many irons in the fire. Absolutely love it. Candle at both ends. I've been in the industry for a little over 10 years now. Automotive, residential, commercial, very bread and butter style business. I don't do anything high end, no Lamborghinis, nothing crazy. Again, very bread and butter style business here. I love it. My favorite thing's probably residential. And I can see myself doing this for quite a long time. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. My name's Tom Hoffman. My business is called Hoffman and Son LLC here in mid-Michigan. And my service area is the Tri-Cities, as we call it, in central Michigan. That's Bay City, Saginaw, and Flint counties. Bay City, Saginaw, and Midland counties. Pardon me, guys. I've been a locksmith for 9 years, and I specialize in residential and commercial. Really, commercial is my bread and butter. I don't do any cars, if you can believe that. There's 4 guys in town that do cars, and I used to do cars. So I was trained in cars. For several reasons, though, I choose not to do any cars whatsoever. I tend to live a stress-free life that way, and I found quite a niche in doing what I do. So I'm pleased to be able to help the Tri-Cities in the way that I do, and the way that they've welcomed me since I've started here some years ago. And thanks for having me on, guys.
Nice.
Well, thank you both for being here. Before we get started, let's just get opinions out of the way. Where do both of you stand on licensing for this trade, whether it be local, state, or federal level? We'll start with Mr. Hoffman, sir.
I'd have to say at a federal level, that's a huge no for me. Just huge no. At the state level, I'm actually still opposed. I think if there should be any sort of licensing, that it should come from the realm and world of locksmiths, and probably stay in that world to avoid the bungling of government and the expense of government. So I don't see this working out very well in anybody's favor if you involve the federal government, because historically, it just doesn't work that way.
Mr. Huffstetler.
I'm on the other side of the fence. As a country, we have a patchwork system that's barely even expanded to 13, 14 states. It is varied in every single way, shape, and form. And I think that the word licensing may not be the best way to approach this, but we definitely need a national unified standard. And if that requires Uncle Sam to have a passenger seat with this whole thing, I think that may be our best chance for resources, enforcement. documentation, background checks. I mean, there's a lot of systems in place that the government has their hands in, but are not directly operating. And I think there's a lot of backbone already kind of built into those systems.
Fair enough. So for the duration of this presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read point by point, almost paragraph by paragraph. I'm going to lead some questions into the discussion. Now, whether Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Huffstetler choose to respond to that, that's up to them. If they want to go beyond that, expand beyond what I've said, that's prerogative. But I'm just going to read point by point. I'm not going to embellish. I'm not going to stipulate. I'm just going to read what's in the article. Okay, fair enough?
All right, let's go.
All right.
Good.
Starting with the article, Keys Inc. is planning to introduce the Locksmith Integrity and National Certification Act, LINK Act, aimed at implementing national licensing of locksmiths. If approved, this proposed federal legislation would create uniform licensing requirements for all U.S. locksmithing. So, gentlemen, this is something, to my knowledge, this has never been broached before. Licensing at a federal level. What do you make of that, Mr. Huffstetler?
So this is not the first industry that's been attached to the government. Keep this in mind. Your loan officers, the NMLS people, they are also federally regulated, background checked, tracked. Port workers, contractors that work in IT with a lot of federal government stuff. It's crazy that it hasn't never been proposed, but also think about the source. We don't know a lot about the Keys app guy. He's been a couple trade shows and things like that, but I think it's well overdue. And I think that the Wild West of locksmithing has just been going crazy for the last 20 years now. And I think that we definitely have to take a step back, look at what our options are, and kind of find out what does the best for all of us in this industry. A unified standard, a license, a clearance, some sort of system that keeps us accountable, and also let's all work together.
Okay. This comes down to the Keys Inc. portion, right? So I don't know who that person is. I don't know if he's a locksmith. I don't know if he's a businessman. I don't know if he's just an investor. I don't know if he's the face guy for the company. I go back to what I said about regulation has to come from locksmiths. It can't come from a company. Because anytime you see a company pitching this, why would they even be doing that? This question pertains to this company. These guys say they want to have vetted locksmiths. Okay, Keys Inc., go ahead and vet the locksmiths. Oh, wait, that's too much liability. Let's just propose, so to take it out of our hands, that the federal government does it. Ah, voila, no liability. Nope, no thanks. That's just those guys wiping their hands of it, making a whole bunch of people that aren't them do a bunch of work and spend money they don't have to, and riling up the government in the process. That's my take on Keys Inc. and this whole thing.
The article continues. Naturally, opinions vary among locksmiths. Advocates argue that it helps eliminate issues with unqualified locksmiths, especially if the regulations are stringently enforced. Opponents argue that government regulation is unneeded and fees and requirements put a strain on small businesses. Now, the last sentence is a big one in this industry, but let's ignore it for a second because it's addressed later on in this article. So let's talk about enforcement because that's a common complaint of this industry. The best crafted legislation won't matter if it's enforced. And we hear that from locksmiths across the United States, whether it's in licensed areas or unlicensed areas. What's the big issue with enforcement? Mr. Hoffman.
If you're talking about using resources, that costs money. It all comes down to the dollar. The second you start saying, we need resources, where is the money going to come from? You and me, the guys out in the field. It's not going to come from Keys Inc. It's not going to come from the customer. Well, maybe ultimately, but it's just going to burden the guys doing the work. Okay. Because somebody has to pay for enforcement. So, okay, let's just create a division. How many more government employees do we need? You can't have one. Got to have a boss, got to have an employee, got to have a secretary. So we're supposed to start a federal agency for locksmithing now. That all has to be paid for by somebody. Right down the line, I mean, we can hardly get calls taken around here for like bona fide crimes. You think this is going to work without some money? It's not. It's definitely not. And where's that money going to come from, guys? Let's be real here. Just you and me, the customer, is just going to make people want to go buy the stuff and do it themselves. I mean, let's not run ourselves out of business. Also, enforcement. Who is gonna stop? And by the way, that's all figurative. By the way, it's speculation. Who's qualified? What makes you qualified? What if you got an apprentice with you? Well, the apprentice went on that call and he messed something up, an error or omission. Well, that's what insurance is for. Well, he's under the guidance of this guy. Well, he didn't have a license. Well, the guy that he worked for had a license. You know, you can skate around this stuff left and right. It's unenforceable. And the hard nose, the idea, the mere notion that there's going to be a bill and there's going to be a law and it's going to be enforced, cracked with a whip. That is some dystopian stuff. That's some COVID lockdown stuff. It's not going to be well received. And just like a speed limit, probably widely ignored. So no customer is probably going to care. Matter of fact, in 9 years, I had one person ever ask me if I was a bonded locksmith. I mean, you know, how many people ask you for insurance? How many people ask you for your ID? What are you going to enforce? What did you do wrong? Is it when you have an insurance claim you did something wrong? Is it when you stole something? No, you're talking about harming your reputation, your work, your livelihood preemptively by not having some qualifications that somebody's going to make up. Who makes up the qualification? Keys Inc. to enforce? I mean, you know, so you're talking about punishing locksmiths instead of the scammers, because the only people that would be enforced are the locksmiths, because the scammers are just going to go do their thing. You know, they're not going to stick around and wait for law enforcement or whatever, the close up shop, the leave the country, whatever the deal is. It's unenforceable.
Those are some good points. I think you are right when you say that it's gonna customers don't care. I mean, I agree with you. I've had maybe a handful of people say, "Hey, are you a LOA, certified locks?" But they don't care. I had one person ask, "Are you SFIC certified?" Like, what the hell does that even mean? But when it comes to things like insurance and regulation, like, yeah, I do a lot of business accounts. They all require certificates of insurance. They all require bonding. But on the matter of enforcement, this is where every state has failed. I'll give my state as a prime example of that. Washington State has 0 locksmith license technically. There's no education. There's no background check. There's more paperwork involved to pull a fish out of a river than there is to be a locksmith in this state. I can be a specialty contractor with federal penitentiary gates, alarms, and locking devices for $125 for 2 years. And that is all that is required of me to call myself a legitimate licensed locksmith in my state. Now, I do have a good connection with my state's contractors association and board. So I say, hey, these guys are advertising. They have an out-of-date contractor's number to advertise on Google, and it's been out of date for like 3 years, hasn't been renewed. Hey, go after them. The problem is that locksmiths in most states are lumped in with drywallers, electricians, plumbers, HVAC. Sure. So you have a state resource that's spread out between every single person that can turn a wrench or swing a hammer. And that's not to say that we need our own dedicated special force, but enforcement needs to be from within and the public and people that have access, because when you go after scammers, you can't just say, hey, stop doing business. Okay, now we're ABC Locksmith. Now we're Acme Locksmith. Now we're American Eagle #1 hot dog locksmith. It doesn't matter because they just flip to the next freaking website. Enforcement needs to be horribly large fines. That money can be used to put back into more enforcement, investigators, public campaigns, association certifications. Federal money does help, but it's a multi-pronged approach. Associations need to be the ones certifying the people. We are the closest ones to the ground when it comes to knowing what the the standards should be, the education should be, the scope of the work should be. The federal government should only be there to help us getting these bad actors out of the way and also enforcing the fines. That's my opinion on enforcement.
I do have a question for you, because you said there's barely anything as far as oversight from the state currently, right? But you
Sure.
said just how difficult it is just to get that fish out of the river, right?
Sure.
Imagine if they kick it up a notch. I can only foreshadow, based on your input,
Mhm.
that we're going to have as big of a debacle in regulation for locksmithing as pulling a fish out of the water, because that is government. So it's kind of like, you think it's bad now, you're asking for it. Don't
Well,
ask for it. It's like asking a cop if you're in trouble. You never
there
do
has to
that.
be a smart way to do it. You
It's
can't
like,
just
hey,
say,
can you text
as
me?
of March 1st, everyone's on this program. It needs to be implemented over time. Hey, within 5 years, you have to be joining this. You have to join your association. Whatever criteria we as an industry decide to build as the architecture for recognizing legitimacy, it is
Good.
adopted and backed by the federal government. We have to have a time frame. There's people that are getting out of this business, people getting into the business. We have to set up the structure over time, not just say, it's on now. Congress has passed it, because even government, when it makes a decision,
Yeah.
nothing happens immediately. We're looking at
True.
tax code changes. We're still waiting to come into
Yeah.
effect from 5 years ago.
And this is the stuff that you're basically inviting. This doesn't seem like it's going to help me or you, but I mean, you said that you paid whatever, it's good for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
What have you got with that?
So for me, the only reason I even have that is being able to say licensed, bonded, insured is pretty synonymous with being a quality contractor. That's a pretty common thing. But to work with Google and other search engines, that is the license they recognize from my state. Every single state has its own specific requirements or none. When advanced verification came along in 2017, they said, hey, if your state has a license, you have to have it. And that was the version of it that we have.
Yeah. So
So,
you have to pay that to work, right?
yes.
It's a tax that only affects you, the
Mhm.
working guy. And
And I don't agree with the way it stands right now. It does not work the way it's set up. A license is a permission slip that you paid for.
Okay.
Just
Let me
go there.
interrupt you there. That leads us into our next point. I'm gonna start back with the article. The article starts back today. Only 13 states and a couple of cities and counties require locksmith licenses, generally based on certification/education and passing a criminal background check. The trend has been for less licensing, with Illinois now in the process of phasing out its licensing requirement. So let's assume that licensing is perfectly enforced. What should be the extent of what it takes to be licensed? Should it just be background checks performed either annually or upon renewal? Should it be initial certification testing, qualification testing with continual education? Should it be a mix of something that? Should it be something more that I haven't broached yet? In a perfect world, uh, let's assume licensing is going to happen at a federal level, which is the whole crux of why we're here. What should licensing address out of the gate?
I have
Uh,
a strong feeling on that, by the way,
uh,
Go ahead.
which is just simply, I'm all for uh, a background check, fingerprinting, stuff like that. Now, everybody has their own niche. Okay, so it'd be unfair for you to be like, hey, for you to be a licensed locksmith in Michigan, you got to know these questions on automotive. I don't do automotive. That's not fair. I've been doing this for a long time with only a handful of cars. Why do I have to care about that, right? What matters is that you're an honest person, that, for example, with Michigan's concealed pistol license, you don't have a high misdemeanor over X amount of years or a felony over X amount of years. You're cleared. Basically, when you're being pulled over, they look at your license. If you're the driver, they know that you're probably not breaking the law. One, you've got a concealed pistol license that it has the prerequisites. You can't get the license unless you haven't had a high misdemeanor in X amount of years, a felony in X amount of years. That should be it. That's it. It's just saying this guy is clear. That's it. He's just a trustworthy guy, because it should be there should be some buyer beware for people too. Okay, because when somebody comes in and they're like, "Hey, do you have a drill or something like that?" I mean, people should ask some questions and do a little bit of their due diligence. Does this help little old ladies and stuff like that? Specifically, the way I'm referencing it, no, but nothing will, other than having your eyes open. And I mean, if you've got the clearance, for example, that pistol requirement, for example, has, it's kind of stringent. That just shows you're not a criminal, and you need people that aren't criminals doing this. That's the only thing that needs to be said: is you're not a criminal. You can come into my house and work. That's the clearance.
So if we're going to assume the licensing is happening and we have enough notice, I think the first thing we have to do is look at what systems are working and what is the kind of the already existing architecture from other industries and other businesses. Like if you want to be a doctor, you don't have to go to school to be a neurosurgeon, but you still have to understand the basics of medicine. You want to be a locksmith, you have to go be a vault technician. You have to understand the basics of rekeying, how to pull apart certain things, how to do certain things, how certain key systems work. And that's kind of, again, going back to where I think associations have a very strong opportunity to implement that. The states change leadership so frequently, and programs change and funding changes. It's going to be impossible. If you look at gun laws right now, that's a great example. Abortion laws, all this stuff across the board, it is up and down every single version and every single ideology and viewpoint across the entire country. So we can't say, well, Massachusetts licensing is great, but Wyoming's licensing is ass. So we have to have a unified standard. And if we had 5 years to put that together, 10 years, 7 years, 3 years, whatever it is, it just makes more sense that way. Um, it's hard for me to say everyone just needs a license to operate, because I agree with you. I'm a huge proponent for freedom, and no one needs permission to be in business. You shouldn't have to just pay a tax to the country to say, I'm going to go pick locks. And it doesn't work out, but there needs to be some stipulation, because we are in a very sensitive industry. We're not just driving trucks. We're not just packing meat. We're working in high security situations, sensitive information, public safety and security, private safety and security, federal safety and security. All those things need to be considered. It shouldn't be a license. It should be clearance. You should be authorized to do work in this industry, and it should be adopted through the associations to give us, breath to that wings of doing it.
I'm going to start back with the article with a quote. It says, "We're dealing with a patchwork of laws that are either too restrictive or non-existent," said, and I'm going to butcher this here, Loy Jamal Al Yafuse, CEO of Keys Inc. Apologies, sir. This quote continues, "This leaves the public vulnerable, hinders ethical businesses, and creates avoidable security risks." End quote. Are existing laws in non-licensed areas leaving the public vulnerable? And if so, can something be done to rectify this without enacting licensing? Mr. Hoffman.
Hmm. The question in one sentence. Again, the actual question. I'm trying to think of the article here.
Well, if can you he's saying that the public is vulnerable without licensing. I'm asking, could you make the public non-vulnerable without
I see what you're saying. Okay,
becoming licensed?
so the public already has a huge resource, because how many times has somebody told you, I found you on Google, I like your 5-star reviews, I read your reviews? So, I mean, people can fake that, sure. I mean, you could probably AI a million 5-star reviews, right? Um, can people call a customer, or is there a reference or something? If you're in Google, which is harder than heck to do as a locksmith, that's like almost a milestone right there.
I agree.
Except for, look at this, guys. We're talking about regulation. It took me like 3 years to get up to number 2 spot in my area. Meanwhile, I was like number 8 when I started, and number like 3 and 4 were the kiosks in Home Depot and Lowe's and Menards and stuff under 24-hour locksmith. If that isn't false advertising, and there's no recourse for that kind of stuff, what makes you think that, just anything can't happen? Because if somebody wants to be deceitful enough, if a contractor just wants to fake they're a locksmith enough, they're going to do it. Just like the guy scoping your neighborhood wearing the reflective vest and faking the name tag and stuff. Hey, fake it till you make it. You know what I'm saying? They're really casing your house. This is just unenforceable. People need to take their own due diligence. It's simple. The guy shows up in a car, wearing sneakers or something, and wants to charge you high prices, won't give you something right away, no idea what he wants to charge. Come on, just send him packing. That's it. Don't be an idiot, There's no way that we can save all the little old ladies and stuff, but then have an honest people. What's the way to have an honest person? Maybe a criminal background check. But, just because you passed that locksmith test that would, you had to name 3 kinds of safe locks or some kind of horse sense and all that stuff, doesn't change somebody from going and ripping off a little old lady just because you passed that test. Doesn't do it. So there needs to be due diligence. And we find this inside our communities. We find it amongst our families. We find our trust in Google. Sadly, if anybody needs to be regulated, it's those guys. So you have real reviews, because I've got a lot of 5-star reviews. People read them. That's how they trust me. They're like, wow, look at these reviews, right? Well, that's part of the thing. But people have to notice who's pulling up. I don't know any locksmiths that, really operate out of a car. So that could be people's clue. I'm open for ideas on this one.
Google follows the law. So Google can't say, well, we don't care about any of these policies because we're going to make our own. They do to an extent, but they still have to follow state and federal laws. I think what we need to look at is branding's important. As anyone that owns a business knows, your branding's important, how you frame your services, everything. We need to stop calling it a locksmith license. The term insurable interest comes to mind. Do you know an insurable interest? Any of you guys know what that means?
It doesn't even sound like a buzzword I've heard.
Insurable interest means that if someone calls me and says, hey, I'm locked out of my house, but I don't have an ID, the state law here in Washington does not require a locksmith to do any type of checking, verifying, investigating that person's ownership over the property. If they have an insurable interest, they're a renter, they lease the car, their paperwork's in the car that shows their backpack, their school paperwork's in there. They have an insurable interest in that property. I think that we need to take a look at the way this system is set up for locksmith regulation. The same way, if you go and you rewire your house and you don't have a licensed electrician verify it, confirm it, inspect it, that it's up to code, it's not going to pass. And if your house burns down, insurance says screw you. I feel like the locksmith industry should be doing the same thing. We have a very good opportunity. If you want to change the locks on your house, it needs to be done by a verified licensed locksmith. You have an insurable interest in the house, the property. Your insurance company is not going to say, oh man, that $80,000 painting got stolen. Oh, it looks like you put $10 Walmart locks on your door. Sorry, we're not going to insure you. Was it done professionally? Does the latch work correctly? Does the bolt line up? Is it a grade 3? There's things that I think that as an industry we're not looking at correctly. We shouldn't just say slap a license on it because that solves everything. There's different systems. There's different ways to look at it that make a big difference to me.
It just sounds like an invitation for red tape.
Well, the free market's kind of failed us at this point. Would you agree?
Well, let me put it this way.
Well, there are successful locksmith businesses. I'm not saying that we're not all successful.
I'll tell you what the free market has done. In the Tri-Cities, everybody knows the story of the locksmith. I won't say his name. In the 80s, he went to go unlock a little old lady. And he thought, it's a little old lady. I don't need to check her ID. And as soon as he got the door open, the news reporters popped out of the bushes. Mm-hmm. And everybody in town knows this story, knows who it is. And everybody vets all of their unlock, for example, their house unlocks are vetted very well. I mean,
Mhm.
I've been shown fake deeds. Mind you, I went out of my territory.
Right. But what does the
But,
state law say though? Does the state say you have to check IDs?
Michigan is not one of the 13, 14 states. It doesn't say anything, but I will give you an excerpt from what the state of Michigan words like checking ID for alcohol, a reasonable attempt at checking ID. So
That's ATF though.
if
Federal
somebody,
program.
I'm saying when I go to somebody's house, if they're locked out, a reasonable attempt at checking ID to me is looking at the mail, looking at their ID, looking at their ID has the same address as the place. You know, they're coming from out of town. Their name matches the Saginaw or the GIS. So the landowner and the property owner are the same person. That's doing my due diligence. But then
Right,
again, I've
but
been
is it
shown a fake
legally
deed.
required? That's the thing you have to understand. Due
Yeah.
diligence, morals, ethics matter none, because if you're sued for letting someone into a house, they say, well, you let my aunt into my house. Okay, I have no way to verify her ID except for this ID could be fake. I have no way to verify that.
And
There's no
that's
state law
one of my
requiring that.
points there is if somebody wants to defraud you hard enough, just like when I was showing the fake deed,
Sure.
if somebody wants to defraud you hard enough, you made a reasonable attempt. Therefore, there is no error or remission on your part. You
I'm
tried.
with you 100%. Don't
In
get me wrong. I'm
essence,
not arguing
you tried.
against that point. I think we should be checking IDs and making attempts to verify where we can. But it's still the Wild West. If there's no law in the books, there's no law to follow. It doesn't say anything about doing certain things, and fucking don't do it. You have no
Okay,
reason to
so
do it. You can
are there
open
any
yourself up to.
statistics? Any statistics on you know, I don't know how to say
Well,
this, but are there any
let
crime statistics that are locksmith related to where we even have to push this now? And I've heard in major cities that there are scammers. They pull up in a car, they want to charge you $350 to drill out a lock that you could pick with a you know with a popsicle stick and that sort of thing. I get that, but I mean there should be some buyer beware too, because when the guy in the car pulls up and he's like, "Hey, I'm here to deliver your mattress," you should be like, "I don't see the truck." Well, the same thing when the guy comes to work on your house, no work truck, no work clothes,
I
just
think that we're looking at
you
this
know,
through the wrong lens. We need to stop looking at this through the lens of, hey, that customer paid $125 more than they would have with me. That's the wrong way we should be looking at this. That's what most of us are getting to as well. We get rid of the scammers, we make more money. This isn't a making more money problem. This is a public safety problem.
I
but
agree.
hold on.
I don't want to mislead and think that's my intention there whatsoever, because I'd have to say I'm a lot more fair on a individual level than uh,
We're two
than most.
paragraphs away from making that argument come to a culmination. Let,
Okay.
let me continue. Continuing with the article, it says plans call for the program to be federally funded with no licensing fees for locksmiths. Licensing requirements will involve training slash certifications and criminal background checks. Keys Inc. is hoping to work with Aloha. So earlier, I said I wanted to avoid talking about licensing fees because a lot of locksmiths consider them a tax on legitimate businesses. But here is a purported legislation offering to cover those fees. Does that make it more palpable, Mr. Huffstetler?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If you do cars, if you do safes, if you have Blackhawk, you have generic code. Let me break it down. Texas Locksmith Association, Northwest Locksmith Association, NASTA, Blackhawk, every single programmer. We're already paying 15, 20 subscriptions. That's part of doing business. I have to put $100 in my gas tank every 5 days because of how much I drive. That's part of doing business. These are also write-offs. Your accountant should be able to say how much you make, how much you take, what's write-off, what's not. This is a simple thing. That's the cost of doing business. If I was able to get twice as much work because I paid an extra $100 a year, fucking so be it. It does make it more palpable, yes. But as a federal government, that money still comes from people. But we're talking about a drop. If we can spend $500 million to go investigate a squirrel, I'm sure we can spend a couple $1 million to button up this industry.
Well, we are talking about adding to a government that is currently in austerity. So I don't really see that happening just because of the political climate, first of all. But if you think that, even if this thing is proposed, passed, and stamped, it's like it's not going to be free, but for a minute, it never is. That's a carrot, that's a bait and switch. I mean, just plain.
Well, let me
I
be
mean, we have
clear.
to
I
be
don't think
real. It's still gonna come down on you and me. It just is. And
come
add
down,
that, I
come
mean,
down how
people
in
can
the
get into
form of
software
a
updates.
quarterly payment. I mean, if you do hundreds of thousands of dollars of business, you're already cutting $20,000 checks to the government every year as it is.
But Chris, you have to think of something. I don't know how many people are in your locale, but there's not a whole lot of people where I live. And this may disproportionately affect people like me.
Mhm.
I'm a one-man show. There's only a handful of guys. I mean, there's one in Midland County, one in Bay County, and it's me and three other guys in Saginaw County. That's the Tri-Cities. We're talking 3 cities, a handful of guys. So I'm not going to get any more work from that. Don't you know how I get more work? When the other guys don't answer the phone or when they have terrible reviews. That's how I get more work. It's not going to help me. There's no ROI.
Here is well, if it's free, it should be even better. But what I said earlier, it needs to be a multi-pronged, faceted attack. It can't just be it's on us. Let's fix it. I think associations like Aloha should have a really, really, really good foothold on the definitions, the education, the training. Online needs to be an automatic thing. No one wants to fly across the country to take a 10-hour class they're required to by the federal government for a topic they already know like the back of their hand. That needs to be fixed, first of all. Anyone that's done online or a prep PRP testing for Aloha already knows like you have to fucking drive, fly, spend the money. It's ridiculous. Yeah, you definitely have a
Well,
little bit of a different.
well, to be fair, we don't know based off of this article. We don't know their recertifications, continuing education. We don't know that yet.
I gotta be clear when I say I don't think any business like Keys App should be the ones that are the gatekeepers for
Oh,
us to go to work.
okay. Hold on. We're getting to that point. We're getting to that point.
Okay.
By the
Fair
way,
enough.
the mention about Aloha, um, as I said in the beginning, it has to come from within. And it's better if a national organization, and I'm not an Aloha member, but I know who Wayne is. Okay. And congratulations to him. He's a younger guy. I think he has some vision. And I think he could make that maybe more fundamental if something were this like this has to move forward. I would like to see something like that, something that's got somebody in the industry running it, that is taking it places, and then is handled by the industry. Again, I don't think this should just be let go into the grasp of the federal government for anything.
Let me put some in
It should
perspective.
always be maintained by locksmiths. It has to change and evolve, and it can't be overtaxing. It can't be asking irrelevant stuff. It shouldn't be overreaching. You know what I
Does the
mean?
name Run Local Locksmith mean anything to you?
No. Did you
So
say
Run
is,
Local Locksmith was a nationwide multinational scam organization led by a guy named something Agabayev. He was an Israeli Russian national.
I
He
think I've
was
heard of this.
horrible. He took the money, funded a movie.
Is
Everyone
this
laughed.
in Florida or something like that?
It's hard to know. It's like I think he lived in Florida, but he had like call centers all around the country. But basically,
Yeah, the $20 service call, and then
yeah,
it was $1 million
he was
when you get there.
the Al Capone of the locksmith
Yeah, the
scammers
bait and switch king.
for quite some time. When his empire got shattered, all those lieutenants went around the country. A lot of them settled on the West Coast because it was still new territory. A lot of East Coast guys resettled, but we're still seeing those effects today. If you go to Seattle, you have. I feel sorry for any locksmith that works in a big city on the West Coast. You have 125 kiosks in Seattle of Kimi. 125. Okay, how can you compete with that? And then if you type in locksmith in Seattle, you have another 500 freaking scammers that all are 24-hour best locksmith, 4,000 5-star reviews. It is nearly impossible to get into this business right now unless you have bought a multi-generational business or even doing this for 20, 30 years right now.
All right,
So
let me interrupt you, and we'll apropos to none. Let me restart, and this will it'll understand in a second. I'll restart the article. Keys Inc. is working to fast track the legislation to introduce into the next session of Congress after working with several legislators and the CIA.
This is disgusting. I mean, this is gross. Who's Keys Inc? Fuck that guy. Like, what are they thinking?
Well, how many? I'm sorry, Tyler. I got to jump in.
who's-
How many apps do we have? We have Keys Inc. We have Kimi. We have Minute-Key. We have Lockjaw. We have the roadside companies. There's a dozen apps. Would you say, hey, we all need to be buying these kinds of tires and buy them through this specific tire supplier mandated by the government? I agree with what you're saying. I agree that.
I can only say what the article says, which is
it would be really one thing.
Consulted.
We should be yelling at Tyler right now because he said it.
Well, Tyler, it'd be one thing if we heard that, like, let's just say Wayne Winton we're talking to legislators and stuff like that. Well, this would be something that we could maybe be on board with or something like that.
Well, he has authority. He's one of us. Industry.
Who's the Keys Inc. guy? He sounds like the dude from wherever. You couldn't even pronounce his name. Is he a locksmith here?
He's 2-time Product of the Year award recipient for the Associated Locksmiths of America. It's a third-party, cut-in app. You locked out, you pay me $17, I send you the job. Someone pays you more, they get it first. That kind of system.
Yeah, again, it's like this guy isn't national. I mean, I don't recognize the guy's name. I mean, I've been doing this for years. I'm on the internet all the time. I've never seen his name on a locksmith forum. I've never seen him. It's just like, that just sounds like bureaucracy at its finest. Is when some outsider comes in, starts influencing for profit, more or less, at the expense of everybody else. This is absolutely the most gross, disgusting thing ever, and he must be stopped.
I feel like I'm getting off track. I'm so sorry, Tyler. Go ahead.
Oh, you're about to get worse. Continuing the article, it says all locksmiths on the Keys app are fully vetted, he noted, adding that the company believes that true national safety and trust require a public standard that complements its platform, allowing vetted professionals to operate anywhere with confidence. So, hold on, before we go any further, can either of you reconcile a public standard that is tied to a private company? And if so, can such a thing exist? I'll start with you, Mr. Huffstetler.
An example of a private company that's tied to a national or public standard? Is that what the question was?
Yeah. I mean, he's basically saying that
they shouldn't be the authority. The authority for what is considered to be a legitimate locksmith should not come from an app that maybe has 5 people working at a CEO, a corporation. This isn't like a skyscraper in downtown Manhattan. This is probably a dude and like a couple people that built an app. This is nothing like what you consider to be like this true conglomerate organization that has the resources even to approach that. First of all, again, I have no fucking clue who this guy is.
Mm-hmm.
A national or standard that's been there's nothing. I mean, maybe when Bill Gates wrote DOS and then a couple other things, there's really no other hugely adopted national standards for things of this sort, especially in the trade industry. Well, National Electric Code would probably be the best example. It's adopted. It's probably built by electricians and people that are engineers inside the industry, and then adopted nationally. That's probably the one I can think of off the top of my head.
Again, it just looks like this guy wants to take the responsibility and liability of having a vetted locksmith out of his company's hands and place it in the government's just for his benefit. And I'm reading right through that. It's clear as day. They're trying to pay to do just that so they can use their business model for profit on our expense. And it's never going to work where it's going to be free from the government and all this stuff. It's just, you can already see what's going to happen.
Why own the cars when why own the cars when you can own the road? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's just transparent what's going on. It's really obvious what they're trying to do for their own benefit.
I agree that.
And it's gross to think that anybody would be buddying up to that. Like, hey, this is a great idea. And things, and let's just say in life, there's a lot of things that sound like good ideas. When you go to the pound, don't you want to just take all the dogs? Just be like, come on, guys, get in the truck, all of you. But in reality, you can't do that, can you? No. So this might sound good. It might be placed with good intentions or whatever. But the actual implementation, the actual rollout, the effect, the cascading, rippling trickle down of the whole thing is just going to hurt you guys while they make money off it. So gross.
Let me tell you from my experience, I tried working for KeyMe for like 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 years ago. There's a huge disconnect between a tech company and the actual legitimate locksmiths in the field. When I say disconnect, I mean people call and say, "Hey, I need a lock installed," and they say, "KeyMe says, hey, for $75, go install this lock. Take the job." Yeah, sure. You get out there, it's like 5 panic bars, and you be fresh installed and mounted and trim hardware. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, oh, that's the job. You've got paid. Like, no, the best people to moderate our industry is our industry. The best people to build licensing standards and what's considered the standard is our industry. It would be really nice to say, hey, Uncle Sam, go through with Google and knock out these fake ass businesses, charge them $250,000 for every time they freaking violate it, kick them out, get rid of them.
Speaking of, I have a friend whose Google listing was dropped with no warning at all. It's a monopoly. You're kind of hosed if you can't get on Google.
But, there is hope. People will say they can do well without it, but you're right. I think it's the way the publishers and the way the internet is held, or internet search is held, because it was a Title 47, whatever the heck it's called, where they don't have to worry about what they publish as publishing in general. That's the protection, though. It's not their fault. They just list what they find.
Well, I think we've come to agreement about it has to come from within and not from, let's just say, oh, I don't know, some random company CEO. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, and that's one thing we can definitely come to is the whole idea of an app controlling our entire industry. Imagine this: if you didn't pay your let's say that's like $500 a year to be part of this app, and you don't pay it, and all of a sudden you're kicked off, and you go to the very bottom of the list. Now you get back on 2 months later, you forgot about it, you get back on. Or what if their systems get screwed up? You go to do a job like, hey, you're not certified in this app, so we're not going to pay you.
That's very interesting.
Well, let me continue on with the article. The proposed federal locksmith license would allow professionals to legally work across state borders by simply turning on the Keys app, expanding the business, removing red tape, and creating nationwide mobility for certified locksmiths, he explained. Mr. Hoff, I'm not aware of your business, but I know that Mr. Huffstetler, you're right there on the Washington-Idaho border. Yep. Do you need somebody's permission to operate between the two?
It's just kind of associated with assume that if you sell mattresses in Spokane, you sell mattresses in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. You service tires and cars in Spokane, you service them in Idaho.
Would you need an app to do so?
No. I think that's hogwash. That is what the HE double hockey sticks is, that crap.
Mr. Hoffman, your thoughts?
Again, that is such a like a moot point. I mean, there's a couple people that are going to live on border towns. Sure. Does everybody live in a border town? Heck no. I mean, it takes me hours to get to another state. That's not going to do anything for me. I mean, all it is just some kind of selling point. Again, for this company's profit on you and I's back. Cool.
Yeah, it's insulting to say that this is let us show you the way to prosperity in this industry through us for a fee where we control it. And I mean, I think all of us agree. Tyler's not saying much, but I know he agrees. I can see in his eyes.
I continue on with the article, which starts with a quote. It says, I spoke with CIA officials during the Aloha Locksmith and Security Expo, and they acknowledged the security cat, Mr. I'm gonna butcher it again. Mr. Al Yusufi added, they encourage us to lead the charge. This is a public safety, industry integrity, and economic growth.
Gross. Absolutely disgusting. I mean, if this guy was like, hey, I own the biggest locksmith company in whatever state. I started this app. I've got these ideas. Okay, this dude she shouldn't even be talking to anybody. Who knows who this guy is? I mean, is he some great locksmith? Does he have a company? Does anybody have a Google review on this guy? Is he just some ghost? Do people that work for him tell him stuff to regurgitate and propose? Does he have just an investor? I don't know who this guy is, but this whole thing is gross to think that there's buy-in on this. It just screams of bureaucracy. It already sounds like it's going to be a complete conflict of interest because this company is going to have an in with the government. So there's going to be all kinds of, it just sounds like an invitation for fraud now. I mean, this is gross. This is disgusting.
Ditto. I agree with all the whole premise. But the thing with the CIA, I know that there are federal agencies that recruit at security expos and things like that. DEF CON, they get some pretty big hitters there because it's like a 40,000 person event.
Wow.
Hackers and stuff like that. I'm pretty certain. I'm not sure if any of you guys know about how much you know about that, but yeah, there are federal agencies that look at the locksmith industry and access control and things like that, and they kind of see who the rising stars are. And they kind of can cherry pick people, interview them. But yeah, I don't suspect there was a guy like sitting in the corner with his glasses on. He's like, "Yes, I hear you. Yes, go ahead." And he walks up and says, "We should do something about locksmith licensing." Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
I've never
About
seen
the government stuff it shows. I'm like, man, I do great work, you guys. I want some of that government cheese. Jeez.
we do have. You can do a federal contracting job as a locksmith through the SAM system, through other channels, which does allow you to be background checked and verified. And there are things like you can't be a foreign national with certain standards and work visas and immigration statuses. So there is some framework in there. But
we're going to disqualify somebody right out of the gate. But I mean, that's just speculation.
It's for me when it comes down to this whole thing. We keep looking at it as I lost the opportunity to make money for my business. We're looking at this whole thing wrong, man. I feel like we're getting to that point, and I'm just going to go off like a cannon. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut for a second until we get to the next part.
Okay, where are we at on this?
We're at the last paragraph, so which is it's a banger. I'll just continue on. Here we go. The article continues. Keys Inc. also hopes that the national license could be a solution for automotive locksmiths. Automotive locksmiths who must now pay to work through NASTF for access to service certain vehicles. I'm sorry, Mr. Hoffman. I'm going to pivot to Mr. Huffstetler for this one.
Go ahead.
So I'm a NASTF member. I want to be able to do new cars. I'm not a hacker. I can't develop my own software to bypass these modules. If you go to a 2025 Ford Bronco, it's less of a car and more of a fucking Gundam now. The way the systems are set up inside of it, the computers, the sensors, the actuators, it is so sophisticated. This isn't a 1970 Camaro. Actually, that's a bad example because it's hard to impression that. This is a 1985 Honda Civic. You can just jam a key into and go, filed, done. You're bypassing 1,000-digit long encryption systems, getting multiple computers and modules to talk to each other, trick each other into thinking they're talking to each other, and then recognize a Chinese-made factory key. They may or may not have the right microcontroller or right information into it. So it is tricky. It's almost magic right now. NASTF already has an uphill battle. They are fighting tooth and nail to get people to accept this whole thing, and I think they're winning.
Do you think? Well, now that I'm not a moderator anymore because I've said everything, do you think that's a shot across the bow that this guy is trying to do?
Oh yeah,
he's trying to.
What's his experience? I mean, NASTF handles body shops, auto repair, the whole fucking industry. We're talking thousands of businesses. And what does Keys App handle? A couple hundred people that joined up over a convention summer. I mean, let's be real here. Their resources are probably nothing.
Allegedly.
It sounds like to me. It sounds like this guy is just fed information from some people, came up with some ideas, and he's just running with it. Literally, it's like if you were to just take somebody that didn't know a thing about what we do whatsoever and said, let's make an app in this field, he would have the same questions and the same push as this guy does. It sounds exactly like that to me. That's just what it screams of. And by the way, it is so gross what we have to do to program a vehicle making you wait 10 minutes to program a GM vehicle when they go just run down to the casino and take an '06 Suburban.
Wait till you have to do a 2024 GMC and it takes 4 hours. And then
Okay,
even then, the server
yeah.
calculations go
I
bad.
mean, look at that, and look what a scammer does. They just go, they pop the hood, they unplug the ECU, they put a new one in, and you get somebody to drill the ignition, turn it over, and off they go. How long did that take? You know what I mean? No, there's no waiting 10 minutes there, so why make us wait 10 minutes in the first place?
Let me ask you that, Mr. Hoffman. Do you think this is a parlay? He's threatening. Well, not. I wouldn't say threatening, but he's working towards licensing as a way to make inroads towards challenging NASTF in that realm. Which
that's just pure speculation. I mean, really. I mean, honestly, there's no way I could even answer that. I mean, I just have to say that I don't doubt the motives of this individual. I don't think whoever this guy is, I don't think he's a dumb person by any means. I just think that he's a businessman who knows how to probably get some money to get some politicians around and try and push some stuff around so that his thing can take off. That's that guy's job. He's not doing this because he believes in it, that he cares, or anything that makes us who we are. This guy is an outsider because he's just doing outsider things. He's doing his job. CEO is a job, and he's doing the job. That's all he's doing. And so I wouldn't doubt that there is a whole nother tier of what this guy is capable of producing or whatever if these doors open, because it could be a cascade of, hey, once we do this, we can start doing this. And once we open this door, now we can do this. Oh, and we've got this politician in our pocket. This whole thing is disgusting. It just is. And, people can say, or this guy can say, hey, it's for public safety and this and that and whatever else. It's kind of like you're doing too much. If you could just tell the guy, you're doing too much, man. This is, if this is not your fight, this is not your battle. You need to keep your hands off of this and let the people that do it take care of it. It's like hiring the college kid to run the business when the guys that have been there for 30 years and know how to make it work just get told just to go to work, just do your job and all that stuff. It's the same kind of dystopian, unsupported, unrespected in the industry, by the way. I mean, unless somebody's kissing this guy's ass, like I've seen, in a certain picture, if you know what I'm talking about. But, yeah, that's the way it looks to me. And you got to call them as you see them because, there's just maybe there's some more to it we don't see, but I think there's more to it. There has to be. Now that I say that, there has to be. Yeah, I don't think it's going to end with this app because if this works, oh no, it'll be far too successful to stop there.
Any final words, gentlemen? Mr. Huffstetler?
The term licensing is misused a lot. We need a license to drive. People still drive without licenses every day. People say we need a license to carry a firearm. Obviously, that does not matter because people still use guns. The term licensing is the wrong way to be put in this. We need to be unified under a standard that we all can say, this is what we start off with. We recognize legitimacy in our industry based on what we have established. We set a broad path to becoming specialized through association that will help us to catalog and continue on with this industry, keeping track of information and new breakthroughs and working as a community. We have the resources, we have the community, we have the channels. Putting it as simply, I lost out on an opportunity to unlock a car that someone else got is completely wrong way of looking at this. Big cities are plagued. It's like a 3-to-1 ratio for what legitimate and illegitimate locksmiths are at right now. The public safety portion of it needs to be the most driven point. We're talking about sending a fourth, fifth party, unqualified, unverified, unlicensed person in a 97 Toyota what's that old one called? The Toyota Tercel. You know what I'm talking about? Someone shows up in a beater car. They barely speak the language. God knows if they have any good intentions. Where do they come from? Who are they? You, if you call a 1-800 number and they're not even being honest with who they are when you start talking to them, they're definitely not going to be honest with you when they get there. Being ripped off is bad, but getting robbed, getting assaulted, getting murdered, getting kidnapped, the public safety is the biggest focus for me on this. Money's great. Yes, we all want to make more money. Yes, the low hanging fruit have been kind of farmed a lot more now with the scammers around. But if your job was doubled by the amount of volume we're getting, I think everyone would be happier. You live in a small area. I get it, Mr. Hoffman. You don't have 25, 30 people to contend with.
Definitely not. I could though. I mean, population explosion. It could happen. I'm just waiting for some dude to show up in the area. Well, I'll know about it too. I mean, it's only a matter of time, to be honest. I mean, I just don't feel your pain because it's not the same demographic.
Locksmith growth in
You know,
2023 was 1%. That is horrible. This industry
Locksmith growth.
is crawling. I think we had like what
Yeah.
the numbers fluctuate, but according to the IRS, there's only 1% growth over the previous year from 2023. In an industry where things are changing all the time, that number should be going up a lot more. If you look at, there's about 300,000 electricians in the United States. Locksmiths, less than 40, I think. Probably less than that. Probably less than 30.
I think there's like 20,000 roughly or something like that.
We're already extremely specialized.
But very few.
I don't have any qualms with setting a standard and us holding each other accountable and having to call the feds in when we need them. Incentivize the hell out of this thing. You got a scammer in your area, you report them, and guess what? You report them through a LOA who can directly contact this board, this group of people, this federal agency, whether it's through ATF, whether it's Department of Interior, Homeland Security, whatever. If you get that scammer busted, $20,000 directly is what they get hit with. Scammers don't care if they get a $500 fine for misrepresenting their business online because they're pulling in hundreds of thousands of dollars a month.
That's insane.
The lens of public safety is the highest chance we have at changing this industry. It's not that you're losing out on money. We're being infiltrated. It's a cancer. We have to cut it out. And if we have to get a bigger group of people involved, that's what we need to do. Call it clearances, call it something else besides just license. Because we have the difference between a license and a clearance. A license grants you permission. A clearance gives you access to sensitive material, locations, and people. That's kind of how we should be looking at it.
I agree with that. For example, if you want to go work at the police post, you need a background check, right? Mm-hmm. Fingerprints takes a minute. I can see. I mean, if you can work in a police post, you should be able to go in somebody's house. For example, yeah. I mean, at some point, would that be good public policy? Well, sure. I mean, it just goes back to what I was saying earlier about, if you don't have, you can't be a locksmith if you have a felony. You can't be a locksmith if you have a high misdemeanor in the last 4 years or 3 years or whatever. There could be something like that, which would bona fide, give at least Joe Public something to look at that says, hey, at least there's a half a chance you haven't committed any crimes lately. I mean, that's common sense type of stuff. I get that. But the overreach has to be omitted. There can't be any kind of overreach. There can't be any kind of lengthy exams on a bunch of stuff that not everybody does and all this weird stuff. It just needs to be for
give me the depth of a Sergeant L22 system. Like, there's things you just don't need that you already know where you weren't.
This public policy should be for people's protection. Okay.
Yes.
So if it's at a bigger level, like you're saying federal level or something, that should just be like the fingerprinting thing. That's it. Bottom line. That's it. The state level, that's where you're going to find your enforcement and stuff like that.
I can't agree with that, man. Here's a good example.
There's no Fed guy going to come jumping in somebody's. How much, you'd have to have how many thousand federal guys just enforce this? It's impossible. It has
That's
to
why we need to police it ourselves. We need to incentivize. If you tell me, hey, if you can bring us a bad person, if you bring us an illegitimate locksmith and we can confirm this information, there is an incentive to do that. That's what I think it comes down to. We have to just say, hey, look, the government's going to back us up, but we have to work together to get these people. It can't just be, yes, there's going to be little ones that fall into the cracks, but there's some really big organizations. Google just busted what? A group that was 10,000 listings or some crap like that a couple months ago. Google, the fact that Google, who has infinite money, is going after someone in court for damages tells you everything you need to know. They're making an example of them. That's all it is. Google doesn't need their $5 million. It doesn't matter. The framework has to come from within the industry, and we need the support of the government, not the entire government. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me started there. But the framework has to come from within. We need the support of the federal government for chasing these fucking people down.
All right. I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to cut it off right there. I think we've satisfied for this evening the nature of our discussion.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said on that, though. It's like, if it's going to happen, it should happen from something like a LOA, where it's up and coming, it's national, it's got a vision, it's forward, it's not forward thinking beyond reality. It's realistic. You know what I mean? That would be a great platform if we had to do something like this, as far as, they're the biggest one, right? So, yeah. Most respected, all that kind of thing. That's where it would have to really core. I guess that's where the beginning of, if a legislator is going to come talk to somebody, you should be at that big meeting with the locksmiths and not CEOs, because that is gross. Matter of fact, any like, that's just disgusting right there. So I think we've touched base on all that good stuff. And Chris, thank you. Tyler.
Appreciate you all.
Enjoyable. Thank you guys both for being here. That was got the blood pumping. I like that. Thank you guys.
That was a good one. Yeah. All right, gentlemen.
It's my first one, so thanks.
Hopefully see you again.
You did well. I appreciate that. Everybody, you all have a great night.
All right. Hey, nice. I'll see you on the forums.
Yes, sir.
All right.